If one day you fell gravely ill and the doctor prescribed you a vial of mercury shimmering like liquid metal or asked you to drink powder ground from an ancient Egyptian mummy, would you dare to try it? It sounds insane, but there was a time when these were considered miraculous life-saving remedies. Imagine you are living in medieval Europe with a high fever, your body full of congested blood. The doctor wouldn't give you antibiotics, but would instead place slimy, wriggling leeches on your skin, waiting for them to suck your blood until they were full. It was believed that in this way, the sickness would disappear along with the blood. So why did people believe in these haunting treatments? Things that seemed terrifying, from being drained of blood to medicines made from corpses, were once considered scientific truth. And behind it all is a history of fear, ignorance, but also a desperate will to survive. Today, let's go back in time together to explore the strangest remedies in medical history, treatments that are both horrifying and make us shudder. To understand why people once accepted these bizarre remedies, we need to return to medieval and Renaissance Europe, a period when modern medicine had not yet been born and bacteria and germs were foreign concepts. People at that time believed that illness stemmed from an imbalance in the body, especially the theory of the four humors: blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When any of these humors were in excess, they believed a person would fall ill. Therefore, bloodletting was seen as a way to release toxins from the body. The image of a doctor using a lancet to cut a vein or placing leeches on a patient's skin was a familiar sight for centuries. Many kings and nobles also endured having their blood flow in streams simply because they believed in the balance of humors. Meanwhile, in the East and also in Europe, mercury, that cold shimmering liquid metal, was considered a panacea. The Chinese used it in alchemy to seek immortality, while European physicians prescribed it to treat syphilis, aches and pains, and even skin diseases. Many people drank mercury until their bodies were poisoned, trembling with their teeth falling out, yet they still believed they were treating the root cause. The peak of strangeness was the trend of mummy medicine in the 16th and 17th centuries. From the pyramids of Egypt, mummies were excavated, crushed into powder, and mixed with wine or made into pills. It was believed that the sacredness of the corpse would transfer to the living, curing all ailments from headaches to epilepsy. The mummy market thus became a lucrative trade throughout Europe. All of this reflects a time when people lived in fear of epidemics, where the plague, malaria, or tuberculosis could claim millions of lives. When science did not have enough answers, desperation made them cling to anything, no matter how horrifying. Blood-sucking leeches, when life was exchanged for blood. For many centuries, especially from ancient Greece until the 19th century, bloodletting was the most common medical practice. It was believed that removing some blood would restore balance in the body. Doctors not only used lancets to cut veins, but also kept jars of live leeches. Imagine the scene of a patient lying in bed with dozens of wriggling leeches placed on their hands, feet, or even their face, clinging tightly, sucking every drop of blood. Deep red blood stains spread across the bed sheets, while the doctor calmly waited until the leeches were engorged and fell off. In the 19th century, a French doctor, François Broussais, even prescribed thousands of leeches each year to his patients in Paris. People believed that as long as blood was let out, the disease would vanish with it. But in reality, many people died not from their illness, but from exsanguination. Mercury, the liquid metal that promised immortality. If leeches terrified people with their bloody spectacle, mercury was haunting for its deadly shimmer. In ancient China, Taoist alchemists used mercury in elixirs with the belief that it would bring immortality. In the end, many emperors, including Qin Shi Huang, died in agony from mercury poisoning. But paradoxically, this belief was not confined to the East. By the 16th century, when syphilis was rampant in Europe, mercury became the golden cure. Doctors applied it topically, had patients inhale its vapors, or drink it directly. There was a bitter joke: one night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury, meaning that whoever contracted syphilis would be tied to this poison for life. Patients who consumed mercury often suffered from mouth sores, tooth loss, and trembling bodies, and many died in agony. But at that time, dying from the medicine was considered the price to pay to cure the disease. Mummy medicine, when death was turned into a life-saving dose. When it comes to the macabre, nothing compares to the trend of using Egyptian mummies as medicine. Starting in the 16th century, Europe witnessed a craze for mumia, a powder ground from mummies. Egyptian merchants plundered tombs, took the mummies, and brought them to Europe to sell to apothecaries. It was believed that mummies contained mystical powers that could cure everything from headaches and asthma to epilepsy. In surviving medical texts, it is recorded that King Francis from France often carried a vial of mummy powder in his pouch, considering it a protective charm. Whenever he was injured or ill, he would take a small amount to absorb the energy of the dead. The scene back then was truly horrific. Thousands of years old mummies were crushed, mixed into wine, and then consumed by people as a kind of elixir. The mummy market grew to the point of scarcity, leading many fraudsters to even use the bodies of recently executed criminals, drying them out and passing them off as mumia for sale. Between belief and obsession, all the methods above, from being drained of blood, having toxic metal flow into the body, to corpses being turned into medicine, share a common thread. They reflect the desperation and blind faith of humanity before science could shed light. Behind these treatments lay the fear of epidemics, where a fever or an infected wound could mean death. And when facing the line between life and death, people were willing to try anything, no matter how hauntingly gruesome. These bizarre remedies, despite bearing the appearance of science, at the time left no shortage of tragedies for society. Looking back, it is clear that they both saved and killed, a horrifying paradox of medical history. When belief becomes a double-edged sword. Thousands of patients lost their lives not to their disease but to the treatment. Leeches were once considered a doctor's companion, but they caused many to die from exhaustion. Mercury was promoted as a miracle cure, yet what it brought was tooth loss, trembling bodies, and silent deaths. Mummy medicine was once revered by the nobility, but was later exposed as a trade in dead bodies, both inhumane and unscientific. Society's reaction. Even in those times, there were voices of opposition. Some Western physicians began to doubt the effectiveness of bloodletting. Some philosophers condemned the practice of grinding up mummies, calling it a desecration of the dead. But the paradox was that the majority of the populace still believed because they had no other choice. However, it was from these debates that scientists gradually began to ask, why do some people get well while others die? This very skepticism paved the way for the development of experimental medicine, replacing blind faith with scientific proof. The lingering consequences. These peculiar methods have left a complex legacy. On one hand, they expose the cruelty and ignorance of humanity in the face of death. On the other hand, they also spurred the need to find more rational explanations, becoming a stepping stone for the birth of microbiology, modern anatomy, and antibiotics. More frighteningly, some blind beliefs still have echoes to this day. In some places, people still believe in dangerous folk remedies, from drinking mercury to swallowing bone powder. This shows that the ghosts of the past have not entirely vanished. Today, when we step into a modern hospital, we are easily diagnosed with ultrasound machines, blood tests, or CT scans. A single antibiotic pill can save a patient who in the past would have had to endure their blood flowing in streams because of leeches. But if we look back at the past, we see a horrifying truth. People once drank poisonous mercury, ground up Egyptian mummies to swallow, just because they believed it was the elixir of life. What were once considered medical truths now make us shudder. And it is from these very mistakes that medicine has learned a valuable lesson. Blind faith can kill, only experimental science can save lives. That makes us appreciate modern medicine all the more, where every treatment method is based on clear evidence. Yet the question remains in our current era, are we still believing in other bizarre remedies, exaggerated advertisements, unverified panaceas? In a few hundred years, will our descendants look back and shudder at what we believe today? Thank you for joining me on this journey to explore the horrific medical treatments in ancient history. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to leave a comment. What would you choose, to live in the blind faith of the past or to trust in the science of the present?